So it's time to have a question on UV coordinates. You should see a poll. So our texture is up here on the top right. These are squares that were rendered, and I've specified the X, Y, and the UV at each of the vertices. And so which one is the right one? I got a lot of votes for D, E, and F. Okay, that's probably a good number of votes. So I just want to let you guys see the breakdowns of how people voted, because I think it's useful to be able to see there's a variety of things that people think. So let's go take a look at these different options. So the majority votes was for A, which is indeed the right answer. But how do we know this? There's several things going on here, and there's extra numbers that don't matter. So these X, Y's don't matter at all. They're completely irrelevant for figuring out. We use X, Y, and Z when we're trying to get our objects onto the screen in the right spot. So these are controlling where our triangles are going to end up on screen, but they're nothing to do with how we're looking at the texture. So we can essentially ignore all the X, Y's in this problem. So the UVs are what matter. So for this vertex, the UV is 0, 1. For this vertex, the UV is 0, 0. So at this point on our square, we should be near UV 0, 0. So UV 0, 0 is here. This is where the dog's body comes down and sort of green near a corner. Dog's body comes down sort of green near a corner. This is at UV 1, 0. So here's 1, 0. So still on the bottom of the dog in the green, right? Bottom of the dog in the green. And so we can map each one and look at these. So I think an interesting puzzle is to map in the other direction. So now, suppose I wanted to get this half of a dog onto my square. So let's talk about what would the UV coordinates be. So in this corner right here, so type in the chat box, what's the UV coordinates in this corner? Yes, it's 0, 0, right? It's the same as it was over here, 0, 0, 0 on this example, because I'm in this corner where the body comes down. Now, this is a spot we haven't talked about previously. What are the texture coordinates of this position? Right. This is at 0.50. This position is right here. So if I wanted to map half of the dog onto here, then I would have to set that UV to this position. Similarly, this is at 0.51, at 0.51 onto this dog. So we can get any sub chunk of this texture and map it onto our quad. If I specify, what do you think would happen if I specified, let me go back to this one, and instead of saying UV 11, this was at UV 22. And this was at 20, and this was at 02. What if I did out to 2? What do you think would happen? Type in the chat box. What would I get in terms of my dog? If I try to go out to 2. Yeah, I'll get tiling. I'm going to get 4 copies of the dog. So if I try to go out to 2 and I go past 1, I'm going to get a replication. This is actually a setting. So one thing I might get is 4 copies of a dog. Another thing I might get is whatever the last row of pixels is, just copied out for the rest of the way. It could just clamp all those values back to this last row. So there's some settings for adjusting that. Okay, good. I forgot to end the poll. Do you guys still see me on the shared screen even though the poll is still going? I was pointing around on the shared screen. Is that, yeah, you see the right thing? Okay, good.